Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2025 Corrales Puntacana full show. That's right, we have research, data dive, and DFS all crammed into one evening for the alternate field event down in the Dominican Republic. We're going to take a quick look at the tournament fact sheet. We're going to check the weather, dig into the data for Corrales, and then at the end, figure out what kind of lineups we want to build. We have a lot to get into. Let's not waste any time. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from fantasynational.com. It is the best golf analytic tool out there for your money. Go check out fantasynational.com. You will not regret it. In the description to the video, there are links to all of the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, where normally I post research regarding the tournament of that week. Considering there were two tournaments this week, I could have had double research. Instead, I backed off, didn't do anything for the Corrales or the RBC Heritage. But normally, if you want to see the weekly research that I do on the PGA Tour, give me a follow at your preferred social media site. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and top player usage in the DFS contest I play that comes out every Wednesday after the DFS Tactics show. It's going to be a big betting card and two tournaments worth of lineup exposures to look at. So if you want to see the players I'm using in my lineups every week and the players I'm wagering, give me a follow over at X. Lastly, for social media, Gabe's handle's in the description. He writes a great article called The Fringe. He does not do anything with any alternate event or alternate field events. He sticks to the main event, but really can't recommend it enough for those weeks and every week. We've been working together for a while now. Really have enjoyed it. Subscribe to that article. You really are missing out. And go follow him over on social media, because that is where we put our detailed write-ups for our picks every week. And the only way you're going to be able to check those out is by following him over on social media. And then lastly, for this intro, we are live. Chat's open. Want to hear from you all. Of course, you have any questions for the RBC Heritage, I'll be happy to answer those. But we are mostly here for the Corrales. So what do you know of the course? Who do you think the favorite is this week? Are you going to be making any wagers? So feel free to jump into chat, make your thoughts and opinions heard. And if you aren't able to catch a show live, make sure you put your thoughts and opinions in the comments. I'll always get to those as well. So let's get into it. Let's do the full show, research, data, and DFS for the 2025 Corrales. And we're going to start like we normally do on a research show with the tournament fact sheet. This is, I think, maybe the first or second year we have had a tournament fact sheet for Corrales. As you can see, it is at Puntacana and the Corrales Resort in Puntacana, Dominican Republic, on the far east side of the island, right on the coast. And that's going to be a big factor when we go to the forecast. Corrales is a Tom Fazio design. Now, nothing to do with Architect Filter in Fantasy National for Tom Fazio. Unlike the Harbor Town being a Pete Dye design, where we've taken a long look at that Pete Dye filter this week for the RBC Heritage. This is a Tom Fazio design. Now, he does have his hands on quite a few courses that are on the PGA Tour. So if you want to get a feel for some of those other courses, you can search for that. The notable thing about Corrales, other than that it is very similar to these other Dominican-style Latino or Latin America host events, being, past Palom and all that, this is an extremely long course. It is the second longest total yardage that the players have seen so far this year, at over 7,600 yards. The listed yardage is 7,670 yards. Just an extremely long course. And there are several bunkers, 94 of them to be exact. So about 4 or 5 per hole. Now, majority of these are protecting the greens, but there are a few fairway bunkers and some waste area and whatnot. A lot of bunkers on the course as well. The other takeaways for Corrales, I've mentioned, but it's very, very similar to, think Vedanta, think Puerto Rico, Cocoa Beach, even El Cardinal in the fall. Paspalum greens, they're kept very, very slow being on the coast. You can't get these green speeds up due to, most of the time, the wind. Paspalum throughout the entirety of the course. Greens, fairways, rough. Rough's not kept very long, much like the Masters, much like Harbor Town's capped off at about 2 inches. No overseed. Paspalum is really pretty easy to chip and pitch with. Is generally the sentiment regarding Paspalum, at least around the green. Unlike other Caribbean events, these greens are about the average for the PGA Tour in terms of size. Most Caribbean style events have very, very large greens because they're all resort style. And so resorts generally tend to have some big greens. These are average by PGA Tour standards and small by Dominican or Caribbean and resort style comparisons. So 6,000 square feet, lots of fairway. The fairway is pretty wide and very forgiving here, much like other Caribbean events. There is a lot of rough, but again, it's not very long, not very deep, not difficult to play out of. There are 6 holes with water in play, most notably 16, 17, and 18, which play, I mean, the course plays along the coast, but 16, 17, and 18 actually is right next to the ocean. 17, the signature hole at Corrales, actually you tee off and cross a ravine of the ocean. Similar to number 8 on Pebble Beach, if you will. So 16, 17, and 18 play right along the coast. But 6 holes with water in play. You see this average fairway with 75 plus yards, rivaling Vedanta. I believe these are larger on average than Kapalua. I mean, just very wide, spacious fairways. So there's a look at the GCSA tournament fact sheet. Again, we're looking at a traditional long par 72, so 4 par 3s, 4 par 5s, measuring almost 7,700 yards. We are on Paspalum throughout the course. Regular size greens or average size greens for the PGA Tour. Very, very spacious, forgiving fairways. Tom Fazio design. All right, with that, we're going to move to Windfinder and take a look at the forecast for Punta Cana, and it looks pretty rough. Looks like rain every single day, particularly Saturday and Sunday, and even most of Monday. Now, Saturday and Sunday look like it's going to be very windy. Perhaps a storm's coming in. Not really sure. But Thursday looks decent with the exception of the rain that's in the forecast. Friday looks like the winds could pick up. So if this forecast does indeed come true and hold, you would think that the Friday morning wave would have the advantage. If you plan on playing some Corrales DFS, feel free to reach out to me over on social media or in the comments of this show. If you're wanting more up to the second forecast for Corrales to see if this does pan out. But as of right now, you're probably looking at a Thursday PM, Friday AM wave advantage. And we're not able to see Friday too far out yet on the super forecast. Like, we can look at Thursday. Doesn't look like anything looks great for everybody. So we would have the Friday super forecast tomorrow. So if you're wanting some more up to the date or up to the second information, feel free to reach out to me in that regard. And then Saturday and Sunday look like a washout, really. Very windy, lots of rain, not uncommon for Caribbean style events, particularly Corrales, Puerto Rico, Bermuda, things of that nature. So with that, we're going to now go to Fantasy National really quickly. Take a quick look at the players in the field this week. Headlined by Keith Mitchell. He's the tournament favorite. Last I saw, I think he was either 12 or 14 to 1. Ben Griffin, Thorbjorn Olesen, and Brandt Snedeker have withdrawn either yesterday or today. So that's why they are starred. But some other notable names in the field behind Keith Mitchell. Alex Smalley has played well this year. Harry Hall, Chan Kim, Ryan Fox, Rico Hoey, Matt Wallace was a winner 2 years ago. Your defending champion is not here. Billy Horschel won the event last year. Alejandro Tosti, Emiliano Grillo. So a few decent names in the field this week, but as you would expect in an alternate field event, the field is pretty weak, pretty soft. First thing we're going to take a look at, just as a big picture overview, the course is long. It's almost 7,700 yards. So your top performers in the field at the Corrales this week on long courses: Keith Mitchell, Hayden Springer, Chan Kim, Justin Lauer, Kevin Tway, Charlie Hoffman, Mark Hubbard, Nate Lashley, Chris Ventura, and Henrik Norlander. Again, skipping Ben Griffin, he is withdrawn. Let's see. No architect filter, like I mentioned, in Fantasy National. We looked at long. Past Palom, the only real data that we get is from the Mexico Open. Having said that, we can take a look at total performance on Past Palom. Yeah, this is probably enough. 32 rounds from Henrik Norlander. Again, we'll have the total performance, but in terms of specifics like approach, particularly putting, the only data we will have is from Mexico. But in the field this week, your top performers the past couple of years on Past Palom surfaced green courses. So we're looking at Cocoa Beach, which is the host of the Puerto Rico Open, Corrales, obviously Corrales, Puntacana, El Cardenal at Diamante, past couple of years has been the host of the Worldwide Technologies. Grand Reserve is another name for Cocoa Beach, and then Vedanta, the host of the Mexico Open. Your top performers on Past Palom courses past couple of years: Justin Lauer, Carson Young, Harry Hall, Chan Kim, Stephen Fisk. It's only been 2 tournaments, but he's played well in them. Mexico and Puerto Rico. Dylan Wu, Aldrich Potegeter. Again, only 1 tournament. It was this past year's Mexico Open, and he damn near won it. But be mindful, it's just a small sample size. And Andrew Putnam, Henrik Norlander, and Joseph Bramlett round out the top 10. Skipping Ben Griffin again, he has withdrawn. Good evening, Phil. Thanks for jumping in chat. Very much appreciated. Good to see you this evening for the alternate field event, the Corrales. And as I mentioned last night, even though the RBC Heritage garners the most attention, and rightfully so, there is a lot of value to be had if you are willing to put in the work, do some extra research, and check out the alternate field events, particularly in the outright betting market. Of course, I'm going to be doing a bunch of DFS as well, so there's a lot of potential value, and it's up to us to try and find it. So it's good to see you this evening. Much appreciated. We'll go now to the course breakdown. really quickly for the Corrales. And while the course is extremely long, almost 7,700 yards, the majority of that is in the par threes. No single par three here at Corrales measures less than 200 yards. 239, 204, 265 yard par three. And then the signature hole is 214 yards. So very, very long, generally difficult par threes around Corrales. Despite the length of the course, the par fours aren't really terribly long. Yes, the 18th plays at 501. You've got a few that are above 450, but you've got a couple of shorter ones as well. 421. 446 is not very long by PGA Tour standards. 399, 387. So again, all of the length of Corrales comes in the par threes and a couple of the par fives, both of which are on the back nine. Not really good eagle chances, only 0.5% and even less. 623, 626. Decent enough birdie chances. 17 unders, quarter of a shot. Now the par fives on the front nine are excellent scoring opportunities. Plays to more than a half a shot under par, almost 2/3 of a shot under par. So there are a couple of holes that are gettable around Corrales, but just because this is an alternate field event and a resort course doesn't mean it's a birdie fest. The winning scores here, like Horschel got to 23. That's really one of the lower scores we've seen. Matt Wallace won at 19. 3 years ago, Chad Ramey won at 17. Hudson Swafford at 18. So, birdies will happen. This isn't, Augusta, where the winner will struggle to get to double digits. But Billy Horschel was kind of an outlier last year getting to 23. Most of the time, we're looking at something kind of similar to the RBC Heritage, in as of the winning score being in the upper teens. Like most cases, with the exception of Vedanta in the Mexico Open, we don't have any shot link data, so no strokes gained by shot type. So all we can go by is strokes gained by hole by par. Pretty even for your top 10s, and it varies greatly as you move up the leaderboard. Your top fives, yes, they're taking advantage of the par fives, but they're actually playing these par threes pretty well as well. And then the winners are really taking advantage of the par threes, they're really taking advantage of the par fives. They're playing pretty well on the par threes, and then the par fours are very, very lackluster in terms of performance or strokes gained. So it'll be interesting to see that as we move forward tonight. Hole composition, again, all four par threes measuring over 200 yards, two of them over the 225 threshold. A couple of shorter, not drivable, but shorter par fours, and several short par fours between 400 and 450. The par 4 18th is 501, and you have a couple at 3 technically at 450 to 500, and then the par fives, you've got two really long par fives measuring over 620 yards, one at about 580, and then one that's a very good scoring opportunity measuring at 515. Scoring distribution, again, don't get it mixed up. This is easy, but not TBC Craig Ranch easy or Travelers easy. There are a few bigger numbers to be had. 20% birdies, 14 and some change percent bogeys, a little bit of doubles, more scores under par than over par for sure, but it's not easy. The easiest it has been was last year at -3 for the cut. You see, the year before that it was +1. It's been even. It hovers generally even or a little bit under. So we'll have to see if this is a little bit of an outlier, or if it goes to -3 or -2 this year, then perhaps players are starting to figure out how to play Corrales. But not a birdie fest. I want to emphasize that. Driving accuracy, very, very easy here to hit the fairways. They're 70 yards wide. I might even be able to hit them on occasion. I'm not going to get crazy and say that I would hit all of them, but I might actually be able to write a little bit of an F on my scorecard if I were to play. I mean, they're extremely wide. It would take somebody to be very, very wayward and be very, very poor like me to miss these fairways. And as a professional, that's just not going to happen. Green and regulation percentage, slightly less than the PGA Tour average. Again, by Caribbean standards, these are pretty small greens. And the course is extremely long, so hitting the green isn't a given. It is not difficult to scramble around here. That is the benefit of playing on Paspalum. 3 putts per round, about tour average. So there's a look at the course breakdown. Taking a look at Corrales in terms of a scorecard and graphical view. I'm going to jump to the historic conditions just very, very quickly. Last year it played extremely easy, but it's really the first time that it played that easy. 2023, the first round was pretty darn difficult and then eased up over the weekend. But most of the history has been average, easy to average. So, again, just showing you that last year was a slight outlier in that every round was easy. But we're generally looking at easy to average easy in terms of difficulty. Greens, speeds, actually were labeled average the first few years. Velcro in 2022, and then we don't have the reading from last year. All right, so as we move forward this evening, let's go to Microsoft Excel and dig into the data that we can for Corrales. Again, remember, no shot links, so we don't have any strokes gained data to look at. So we're going to start with distance and fairways and greens. And I think this is a little bit misleading. We didn't get the distance figures last year. But you'll notice that distance says it's 20% less. I don't believe that. I think this is an outlier. I think something weird happened in 2022 to cause it to be a negative factor. Because if you remove that, it jumps quite significantly. So I'm going to be factoring in distance a whole lot, especially since if that forecast is indeed accurate and holds, it's going to be really soft around Corrales this week with all that rain they're supposed to get. So I just think the course is going to play even longer. So I'm going to have quite an emphasis on distance. Good drives, not really a whole lot. And then greens, these even though it says that it's 6% less, 6% less than the average full field event. The greens, it's not a given to hit these. So I think we're going to take a small look at greens. Moving to scoring, the bogey avoidance has been kind of everywhere. Now, if you want to follow the pattern, big factor, not as much. Bigger factor, not as much. So if you're following the pattern, then bogey avoidance would be a big factor this week. But look at the birdies gained. Year by year, it has gone up. And so I'm going to continue following that trend, looking at birdies and birdies are better gained this week for Corrales. And then moving to the par threes, again, only par threes on the course are over 200 yards. Even though the third, fourth hole, whatever the shortest par three is, measures 204, you'll notice that they do not, even when they move tees and pins around, they do not play at less than 200 yards. So we're looking at two very specific ranges of par threes. We're going to be looking at all of the par fours. Yes, the 18th is the only one that stretches over 500 yards, but all of these ranges play a decent factor. and we saw in the course breakdown, at least graphically, the par fours kind of mitigated. So we're going to kind of group all of this together and look at all par fours. And then for the par fives, they are fairly important. You see, par threes. I didn't mean to skip over it, but the par threes are pretty darn important here at Corrales. Right at PGA full field course average for the par fours. I think they're pretty mitigated. Par fives, a lot of people are taking advantage of them. So maybe not a whole lot to gain, but you do have to play them well if you're going to contend at Corrales. And of course, no proximity data, no shot link. All right, so there's a quick but deeper statistical look into Corrales. We'll go back to Fantasy National, and let's just go to the mixed condition model that I've built for Corrales this week. We're going to start with 5% off the tee on long courses. If that camera is cutting in and out and it's distracting, let me know. I'll turn it off. That's why I keep looking over just to see if it's frozen. I haven't noticed it yet, but I feel like I see something out of the corner of my eye. 5% off the tee on long courses. Again, these fairways are so extremely wide and forgiving that I'm just making sure, or I'm using off the tee just to make sure that players keep it on the same planet. Yeah, okay. Starting to cut in and out. So 5% off the tee, but you see 15% in distance. Like when driver is in these players' hands, who can just bomb it? Because this is a bomber's paradise. So that's where the majority of the off the tee is going. 15% approach, 10% around the green. Again, I mentioned these greens, it isn't a given that you're going to hit these. You're coming in with long irons. Wind plays a big factor. Some around the green is going to matter. And it look no further than a couple of these past champions. Matt Wallace, very, very good around the green. Chad Ramey, pretty darn good around the green. He hasn't been in 2025, but he was pretty good around the green when he was winning. Billy Horschel, pretty tidy up and down, or short game, I should say. So it takes some short game to win here, particularly some around the green, especially with all the bunkers. I just incorporated all of the around the green. If you wanted to be technical, I don't suppose it would hurt to look at 5% in sand saves. I just lumped it all into around the green. We talked about distance. This is 5% that I'm not as confident in, but these greens, again, aren't easy to hit, or they're not a given to hit. So I want to see who can hit greens with some regularity. And I use the filter long courses. This does incorporate some proximity, but that's mostly like long iron proximity. And I didn't want to do that because Corrales has several short par fours. So I figured this would be a way to kind of have a little bit of at least long iron proximity, like par 5, scoring kind of hidden in with it as well. So 5% on greens gained on long courses. Saturday and Sunday look pretty difficult if they're able to play down there. But Thursday and Friday look very gettable. So I do think Thursday and Friday are going to be pretty easy, especially if it is soft and not windy. That means it's just flag hunting season for pros. 15% in opportunities gained, 10% in birdies or better gained when scoring is easy relative to par. This mostly applies to Thursday and Friday. So full 25% there. Then the rest of the mixed condition model, I've got 5% each in the ranges of the par 3s. Par 3s are quite heightened here in terms of importance. Par 4s are quite mitigated in importance. That's why all par 4s are just at 5%. And And then I do have 10% in par fives. I would have liked to have had a little bit more in here, or looked at each individual range, kind of ran out of percent considering I wanted to make sure I had enough in around the green. I emphasized the distance, etc. So I kind of ran out of percentage there with par fives. But there's a look at the mixed condition model for Corrales. Again, areas where I could be weak. I didn't factor any pass pal and putting. The only pass pal and putting data we have is from Vedanta. This isn't Vedanta, so I wasn't too keen on that. If a specific range of proximity matters, I wouldn't know it because we don't have shot link data, but I would be weak to that. Otherwise, this is pretty similar to the style of mixed condition model that I've made year over year at the Corrales, and honestly, my best DFS performance was at the Corrales the year Chad Ramey won. So I've just been trying to make slight tweaks since then, considering it worked out so well that year. All right, with that, let's move to Microsoft Excel and go to the DFS portion of the Corrales full show. My rankings for the Corrales go as such, and remember, my rankings are based on 3 criteria: the FNGC rank. Oh gosh, sorry, the camera is absolutely buzzing out. There we go. Apologies for that. My rankings are based on 3 criteria: Fantasy National rank, which is a numerical ranking based on the metrics and percentages and all that we just covered. Fantasy National will spit out a ranking. Course value is an attempt at giving a player a numerical value on how well they have played that course. Normally in the last 5 years, this is the last 4. And there have not been enough members at Fantasy National looking at the Corrales yet, so I don't have any projected ownerships. Gabe doesn't do anything for alternate field events. So much like the forecast, if you're also wanting to see who some of the chalky plays are, or who might be pivots, reach out to me on social media or in the comments tomorrow. I'll be able to help you out once more members at Fantasy National take a look at the Corrales. But anyway, that is the explanation to my rankings. My rankings, oh gosh, my apologies. This is sorted on price. My goodness, Nick. Get it together. Let's look at my rankings for the Corrales. Go as such. Chan Kim is my number 1 player. Harry Hall, Alex Smalley, Alejandro Tosti, and Keith Mitchell round out my top 5. Rico Hoey, Matt Wallace, Charlie Hoffman, Joel Damon, and Hayden Springer round out my top 10. Not really a whole lot of surprise here. You see, I mean, the cheapest player in my top 10 is Joel Damon at 87. So very, very top heavy. I did not factor in a lot of previous course history. Billy Horschel, Matt Wallace, they were winners the first time they stepped foot on property. Chad Ramey made the cut his first time and then won, but his made cut wasn't anything spectacular. So there doesn't need to be a whole lot of familiarity with the course to have a lot of success. So this is given very, very little weight in my rankings. Okay, now I will sort on the price board. Again, it's going to be hard to determine who might be chalky, who might not be. So we'll have to do our best guess. But in the 5 digits, in the 10Ks, we only have 2 players. Ben Griffin was a 10K player, but he has withdrawn. So we only have 2 players, Keith Mitchell and Alex Smalley. And I'm going to be honest, I'm not really crazy about either one of them. Having said that, if I'm choosing between the 2, I'm going to go with Alex Smalley. He has played so very, very well here. And I know I just mentioned that course history isn't that big of a deal, but Alex Smalley has continuously played well here. a 22nd, a 2nd, and a 6th. So there's just something about Corrales that he really, really likes. So of the two, I would be between Smalley, or of the two between Smalley and Keith Mitchell, I would take Alex Smalley, but I'm really not all that inclined to jump into the 5 digits, into the 10Ks this week. A lot of that has to do with the fact that I don't think there's a lot in the 6Ks either. It is an alternate field event, so you're looking at the dregs of dregs in terms of 6Ks. But I'm generally more in the 9s in these alternate field events. So I would choose Smalley over Keith Mitchell, but I can fade both of them. Having said that, I play multiple lineups, so I'll have Smalley 2 or 3 times. I'll have Keith Mitchell once or twice, because you don't have to go into the 10Ks. I mean, they're cheap enough that you don't have to go down into the 6Ks to fit them. I mean, using Keith Mitchell, you average 7,800 per player. Now, fitting a 9 might be slightly scarier, and you'd hover more in the 7s, lower 7s, but you don't have to go into the 6K. So none of them are priced outrageously expensive that you can't use them. I'm just really high on the 9s. So in the 5 digits, in the 10Ks, Smalley slightly over Keith Mitchell, but I'm not really making either a part of my core. Moving into the 9s, Harry Hall. Love Harry Hall. Chang Kim, my number 1 player this week. Love both of these guys. A majority of my teams will start Harry Hall, Chang Kim. I'm sure that'll be chalky. I don't care. I'm pretty confident that I can find some uniqueness elsewhere. But I am trying to hammer as much of these two as I can. I'm much higher on Chang Kim, not just because he's number 1, but Harry Hall's irons haven't been the greatest. But he also finished top 15 here the 1 year he played, whereas Chang Kim finished top 10. Chang Kim's irons have been really good, at least in relation to this field. They both play very, very well when it's easy. I think Chang Kim is the choice of these two. Now, Chang Kim hasn't played the par 4s nearly as well as Harry Hall, but hard to ignore that right there in the distinct difference in quality of iron so far. Having said that, Harry Hall is a PGA Tour winner as well, so they each have their pros and reasons to go to them. I'm going to use both of them a lot, but I'm leaning towards Chang Kim of those two. Ryan Fox is noteworthy as well. He's been playing better as of late. You see, he's got a lot of good statistics here, so I'm definitely going to be using some Ryan Fox. You can't play everybody, so the kind of the bold fade for me at Corrales is probably Seamus Power. He hasn't been the greatest around here. He doesn't have a whole lot of distance. Granted, Chang Kim doesn't either, but Chang Kim generally plays really, really well when it's easy. And Seamus can, but maybe not as much. Seamus Power kind of struggles off the tee as well. Long irons, not as great. So he's the one player I am fading in the 9s. I like Rico Hoey a lot. Matt Wallace, hard to argue against, considering he's played here one time and it was a win. I'm pretty sure it's pretty difficult to do better than that. He's got a lot of things going for him as well. So as you can see, I really, really like the 9s. That's why I can, I can stay away from the 10s if I want to. I'm going to be using a lot of Harry Hall, a lot of Chang Kim. I imagine they'll probably be pretty chalky. Ryan Fox might not get a whole lot of attention, and that's why I'm kind of intrigued by Ryan Fox this week. I'll have him in my fair share of lineups. Rico Hoey I'll use, and I'll sprinkle some Matt Wallace as well. So I'm really using a lot of the 9s. Moving to the 8s, Alejandro Tosti, quite interesting. Generally doesn't play these Caribbean events well, despite him being a South American. Number 1 by the rankings, he's falling because I have to put a value here, and I usually set it pretty high because we don't know if a player is going to like the course. But number one, purely by the numbers, irons have been much better. We know about his big prowess with the driver. Can hit it a long way. He's actually been really good around the green, at least in relation to this field. So Toasty, I would have to think is going to be pretty popular, but probably for good reason. I'll use some Damon as well. He's been okay around Corrales. But other than that, I'm not really all that excited about the 8s. Again, that tells you the kind of lineups I'm building. I'm generally doing like 999, 777. I might throw in Toasty some, but I just expect him to be popular. That's why I'm trying to lay off of him a little bit. Steven Fisk finished top 5 or maybe top 7 at Puerto Rico. He also played pretty decent at Mexico, so maybe there's something just simply with Paspalum that he likes. Fisk has also been the number 1 player in this field on par 5s this year. So kind of interesting. I don't know how unique he'll be. I imagine he'll definitely be much less owned than Henrik Norlander, who Henrik Norlander is going to get a lot of attention, rightfully so, in these alternate field events. He generally plays pretty well in them. Number 1 iron player, very good with greens. His long par 3s are really good, so he generally does well on these alternate field events on these Caribbean courses, but I think he'll be pretty popular. And then I imagine a lot of people will go to Aldrich Pokegeter. I don't want Pokegeter this week. Corrales is going to emphasize around the green, and unless he's gotten a whole lot better since the last time we saw him, I think that could spell trouble for Pokegeter. So Pokegeter and Seamus Power are my 2 kind of bold suggestions on who to fade. But otherwise, I'm not really in the 8s. Like I said, I'll play Henrik Norlander once or twice to make sure I have some coverage of him. I'm kind of intrigued by Steven Fisk. And then I will dabble some Damon and some Alejandro Toasty. Moving into the upper 7s. I've talked about Ricky Castillo quite a bit this year, and I still think this is a pretty good spot for him. Top 15 in irons. Lots of opportunities when it's easy. Converts them. Par 5s. It's just off your screen. He's 11th in par 5s. I think this is pretty good for Ricky Castillo. I don't know if he wins, but for DFS purposes, I think he's going to be pretty solid. Bramlett is also somebody I want to mention. However, I was shocked to see how much ownership he garnered in the last alternate field event in Puerto Rico. So be mindful of that. I like Bramlett, but I'm pretty sure he's going to be pretty popular. So just be mindful of that. That's really kind of it in the upper 7s. Like Mac Meisner, maybe. I don't know, maybe to a lesser extent, but I'm really high on Ricky Castillo. I would like Bramlett, but I expect him to be popular. Then moving down into the mid 7s, like Chris Gotterup has all the distance in the world. Maybe, I don't know. Not feeling great about it, considering he's generally not the greatest around the green. The irons are Eric Van Rooyen, winner at a similar course at El Cardinal. But, the last time we kind of talked about Eric Van Rooyen, he really laid an egg. I forget where it was. Yeah. Valero wasn't all that great. Missed the cut at the Players. So he's quite Jekyll and Hyde right now. Sometimes he'll lose with the irons but gain a bunch around the green. And before that, he was really good with the irons and really good off the tee, but then losing around the green. He just hadn't put it all together in a while. So I don't know how to feel about Eric Van Rooyen. Another name, if you're a big believer in continuous success at the Corrales, if you like knowing players that have continuously played well at a course history like Alex Smalley, take a look at Ben Martin. Ben Martin's been very solid here in multiple tries. He's also been decent enough with the irons in 2025. He's struggled around the green. He's been good on par 5. So I don't know how. I imagine Ben Martin would be pretty darn unique. So if you're a big believer in course history, you can take a look at Ben Martin. Really, the only other name in the lower 7s that maybe would be worthy of consideration is Danny Walker. You know, that really standout finish at the Players, and then kind of laid an egg a couple weeks after that. If you are in the 6Ks, I'm not going very far into the 6Ks. The one name I would have for you is Tim Whiting or Wheating. Again, all about the distance. Gives himself plenty of opportunity. Generally plays well when it's easy. So it's worth a look, but you know it's a play on the distance. Nick Hardy rated out extremely well. I'm not as confident in Nick Hardy than I would be in some others. And even though he rated horrendously, like near the bottom, take a long look at Rafael Campos. I know the irons haven't been good, but he's been exceptional at Corrales and really all of these Caribbean style events. Campos at 6,900. I don't think people realize he was at the Masters last week. The irons have been really, really bad lately. I mean, really bad in 2025. But he's been playing against stiffer competition than what he's used to. But much like Alex Smalley, you know, going back to 2021 here, runner-up, top 30, fairly middling in the top 15. Like, he's generally played very well around Corrales. So if you are in the 6Ks, Rafael Campos is at least worth a look. There is the price board and how I think where some of the chalk is and who might be some more unique options. We'll build a couple of lineups. We'll start with what I'm thinking will be a chalky lineup. Again, this very well, I might be off with this, but my guess is that somebody like Henrik Norlander is going to be in this. Actually, he might be here. Alejandro Tosti maybe would be in this. I don't think very many of our fellow contestants are going to come down into the lower 7s. Adams Vincent might get a look just because he's a bigger name. Cameron Champ might get a look. Based on the Bombers Paradise narrative. Otherwise, I don't really see a whole lot down here in the low 7s that a lot of what I think a lot of our fellow contestants would look at. Let's just bottom this out at Cameron Champ. Maybe in the mid to upper 7s, Joseph Bramlett would absolutely get a lot of attention in here, which leaves them 8,900 per player. So unfortunately, it seems like Toasty would be here. And then, take your pick between Harry Hall and Shane Kim. My guess is it's going to be Harry Hall. 8,000 Higo Pokeater. He'll get a lot of attention this week. So this is my guess as to what a very chalky lineup will look like. Maybe it's not Harry Hall. Maybe it's Shane Kim. They might come down to Rico Hoey and then spread out this a little bit more. But my guess is that majority of our fellow contestants are going to build balanced lineups. if they do build, a little bit more top heavy, if they do go with Keith Mitchell, trying to look down here into the sixes, maybe Matthew Neesmith gets a long look, considering he's, a good iron player and at least a name that's people are aware of. But really, I don't see a whole lot down here at all in the sixes. So this would be more of the low 7 type deal. Like maybe Mark Hubbard gets some attention. He's generally plays these Caribbean events pretty well. Mark Hubbard, Lonto Griffin maybe, Luke List maybe. And I'll throw Adams Vincent into this. He might get some attention being a household name since he's won a PGA Tour event. Nate Lashley maybe Van Rooyen, Champ again. But if they go Keith Mitchell, more than likely they're skipping the 9s, would be my guess. If they do go to the 9s, it might be somebody like Wallace. What does Wallace give them? Yeah, 7,900 per. This is easy. This is Polk Geeter and Bramlett. So that's probably a chalkier 10K looking lineup, going with like Keith Mitchell and a low 9 or a high 8, Matt Wallace, Toasty, Joel Damon, players of that nature. Polk Geeter's probably going to get a whole lot. My guess is Bramlett gets a lot of attention. I don't know that for certain. So how are we going to combat that? Well, like I said, I'm not really going up into the 10K. If you do, I gave you the one name in the 6Ks that I would look. It's Tim Whiting or Rafael Campos. I would use Tim Whiting. Campos, I imagine, will be extremely unique if you really wanted to maximize that aspect. I would lean Smalley over Keith Mitchell. But the fact that you're willing to drop into the 6Ks means you got a whole lot of wiggle room up here. Like you have Alex Smalley. Like I'm pretty sure Ryan Fox is going to be pretty unique. Drop down into the 8s. Not a whole lot in here I like, but maybe like a Stephen Fisk. And then in the 7s. In the upper 7s, I was liking Ricky Castillo, maybe Chris Goddard. I'm not that excited for. Like if we throw Castillo into this, oh yeah, 7,400. That's fine. Again, whatever your feelings are on Eric Van Rooyen, Ben Martin would absolutely fit and has a lot of good course history. Like I would have to imagine that this is going to be pretty darn unique. Smalley's probably going to get a lot of ownership, but I can't fathom. Ricky Castillo might get some too because he's played pretty well on the tour this year. But Fox and Fisk, Fox is probably going to get squeezed with everyone else around him. And then Martin and Campos, pretty unique in their area. But the lineups I'm building most often are these 999, 777s. Really. Again, I like Harry Hall and Chan Kim. I know they're popular, but I'm going to use them. I'm going to use a lot of them. I could drop into the 8s for like a Toasty or a Damon. If I can manage it, I would try to get Rico Hoey, but you're starting to get pretty challenging with that. So instead, I mentioned Stephen Fisk, but you could also do like a quadruple 7 lineup. Go like Ricky Castillo. I still like Joseph Bramlett. I think he might be a tad, a touch too popular to combine with Harry Hall and Chan Kim. You can take a look at Jackson Suber. He rated out decently well for me, all based on the irons. But he's somebody I've mentioned before and hadn't come through. But really, the low 7s, there isn't a whole lot here. Maybe Danny Walker. Again, Ben Martin. based on the course history. But I'm building a lot of really, really balanced lineups. We'll go Danny Walker here, Ricky Castillo, Joseph Bramlett, and yeah, we'll throw Goddard up into this. I'm not the last person. Goddard up. Maybe you're a believer in Michael Thorbjornsen. This could even be Mac Meisner. You know, the last couple of spots here are pretty open for interpretation, if you will. But my core has been looking a lot like this. Maybe not necessarily in the same lineup, but you know, one lineup will do Harry Hall and Chang Kim. The next one I'll do Harry Hall and Rico Hoey. Then the third lineup I'll do Chang Kim and Rico Hoey. Like I'm just mixing and matching with those three, and then sprinkling a little bit of Fox, a little bit of Matt Wallace, Toasty a little bit too. Although I do think he's going to be popular. And then you know I'm doing a whole lot in the upper sevens with like Ricky Castillo. Bramlett, I think he's going to be popular. Again, this isn't all the same lineup, but I'm just trying to show you the players that are my core. If I could type. These are going to be my core plays, just mixing and matching throughout all the lineups that I'm building. Like one lineup will be these three, and then the next lineup will be these three. And then I'll do Harry Hall, Rico Hoey, and Castillo, and just mixing and matching and throwing, you know, scattershotting that sixth person, whether that's Ben Martin, Danny Walker. I might even throw Luke List into a lineup to play on the irons. Dude, how did you feel about the Masters Sunday? Pretty wild. It was. That had to have been the most entertaining Masters in a long time. Now, granted, I've only been covering golf or watching golf religiously for 7, 8 or so years. So, things in the 2000 aughts and maybe early teens are kind of skip. I might not be as familiar with, but I'd be hard pressed to come up with a more entertaining Masters than that. I have to admit, I did find myself kind of rooting for Justin Rose there at the end. Take nothing away from Rory, the career Grand Slam, well deserved. I don't know how many people with the Masters on the line is going to hit a 190-yard approach to 2 feet like he did on 17. Or the 71st hole. That was very, very impressive. So I think the poll question tomorrow will probably revolve around Rory. That's my gut feeling in terms of a poll question for tomorrow night's DFS Tactics show. But that's going to be it for the Corrales. Again, if you're wanting more up to the second information when you start filling out your lineups on the forecast, on the ownerships, feel free to reach out to me on social media or put it in the comments of this show. I'll be more than happy to help you out tomorrow as you're filling out lineups. I was watching that whole round rooting for Rory, almost died 3 times. I mean, shoot, his double bogey on one, his, I'll use quotation marks, classic short missed putt on hole 72. I mean, that thing had drama galore. It was quite the watch, that's for sure. But Phil, thanks for jumping in chat. Very much appreciated this evening for the alternate field event. And thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, listens, supports the channel by liking the videos, commenting, and subscribing. I always appreciate it. I love what I do. Taking a very in-depth look at golf statistics, trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process. A reminder that I will be live tomorrow night for the RBC Heritage DFS Tactics show, so you don't want to miss that. So for all of the wagers that you've made this week for the Corrales, for all of the DFS contests you play this week for the Corrales. And until I see you tomorrow night for the RBC Heritage DFS Tactics show, may all your bets be profitable.